I have started to record the meeting.
Okay, the meeting is called to order. Are there any additions to the agenda? Okay, if not, we will move to approving the minutes of the February meeting. Were there any changes or corrections to the draft minutes? I'm not hearing or seeing any, so if there are no changes, the minutes are approved as written. Next, we will elect our officers for the new year. We have one nominee for each of the positions. Lauren Boucher from Park Ridge has volunteered for Vice Chair, Chair-elect, and Becky is back as Secretary. Thank you, Becky and Lauren, for volunteering. So I guess with one nominee, we can congratulate Lauren and Becky on your new positions. And thank you again. So, moving right along, I guess next Rachel will have the scrap report.
One moment. All right, good morning, everyone. The Scrap Advisory Group held a meeting on April 14th. Virginia has been able to create archive files without using the 945 field to eliminate local records. So because of that, Scrap passed a motion to recommend eliminating the use of the 945 field in local records. Because the executive committee approved the motion to replace the illegal alien subject headings with those that are recommended by CCS and Scrap discussed the issue and voted to recommend the replacement of the illegal alien subject headings with the subject headings recommended by CCS and the SAC, which is the Subject Analysis Committee from Alex, that's now core. I also presented on a recommended controlled vocabulary for improving the accessibility of LGBTQ plus items in the collection called Homosaurus. Scrap passed a motion to review Homosaurus terms and choose the most appropriate terms for the CCS database. A librarian requested that Spanish subject headings from Biblioteca Nacional de España be allowed in the CCS catalog. Scrap also passed that motion to recommend allowing the BNE subject headings. I created a new draft wiki page for the study program field note, which is the 526 field. This page describes what Marchive adds. Marchive does add the field for accelerated reader terms. It explains how it is formatted and what should be removed from the field in OCLC records if you'd like to clean that field up. This page will be reviewed at the next scrap meeting. The link to the page is in the slide. Also, it's very important to nominate yourself for Scrap. Scrap has 4 openings this year for new members. So please consider nominating yourself or someone that you work with for the committee. Topics that will be discussed next year will include an audit of the bibliographic input standards. We are going to do a periodic audit, say every 3 years or so, of the standards to see if they need to be updated. And we're going to be discussing some interesting topics of subject headings for diversity, equity, and inclusion. So it should be a fun year. Next on our agenda is illegal alien subject headings. After a renewed call to replace the illegal alien subject headings in the catalog, CCS staff thoroughly researched the topic. Rebecca brought the issue to Executive Committee in March. Executive Committee passed the motion to direct CCS staff to select and implement alternate language and replace the terms in the database. I presented on the topic at the scrap and database management meetings. Both groups passed the motion to replace the terms with the terms recommended by CCS staff. So these terms will be replaced on June 7th. The authority records will be updated, and Virginia will regularly monitor the catalog for records that need correcting. So to select these headings, we reviewed the literature and controlled vocabulary items. The controlled vocabulary to identify the most recommended terms, challenges to varying from national practice, and variations in how libraries updated the terms in the catalog. We identified the terms used by CCS library patrons and analyzed the results of searches executed with 6 varying terms. CCS concluded that the best terms to use locally are the terms recommended by SAC, the Subject Analysis Committee Working Group, in their 2016 report. So there are 7 subject headings affected. Aliens will be replaced by non-citizens. Illegal aliens will be replaced by undocumented immigrants. Alien detention centers will be replaced by immigrant detention centers. And any of the other terms that have illegal aliens will be replaced by the equivalent term with undocumented immigrant. So what are the next steps? The existing authority records will be updated with the new term, and a note about the change will be added to the authority record. A global change process will be implemented to update the records with the specified headings that are linked to the authority records, but not all of the headings are linked to authority records, so the unlinked headings will need to be updated manually or as a bulk change. And Virginia will check the records weekly for any new updates and that need to be made. We will be making a catalog wiki page that explains the policy and how the headings are changed. If LC does choose to update the headings with acceptable terms, we will add those to the records, but will not be deleting the local headings. We will leave any local headings because those could enhance accessibility. Are there any questions so far? Let's see. We have a question from Adrian Galindo. Is it a motion to eliminate the requirement of the 945 or the use of the 945? It's to eliminate the requirement of using the 945 that says old CLC do not set.
Rachel?
Yes.
So for new records that come in, say, and it has a heading illegal alien, so the catalogers are able to just leave it as it is and bring it in with that heading? Is that right?
Yes. Yes, the catalogers can leave it as it is. If they want to change it, they're welcome to it. But Virginia will be reviewing records to identify any new records with illegal aliens in it that need to be updated, and we'll be updating them for us.
If you bring a new heading in after I do the change, please do. Can everybody hear me? Please do the change. It's going to save me time and effort. I appreciate any help anybody can do.
And Anita asks, is the scope of non-citizens the same as aliens? It seems non-citizens might be a broader in scope. It does sound like it's broader in scope, but the term non-citizens is in alignment with what the government will probably be changing aliens to in the legal code. President Biden has asked that immigration agencies use the term non-citizens instead of aliens, and will be replacing the term illegal aliens with undocumented non-citizens. So my guess is that in the future, the term for Library of Congress subject headings will be replaced with the term undocumented non-citizen, instead of what they had previously suggested, which was unauthorized immigrant.
Good.
But personally, I feel like the term non-citizen is still such an unused term that, or such a new term that it would still be helpful to keep undocumented immigrants in the catalog, since that's what most people search with anyway at the moment. Are there any questions? All right, I'm going to move on to the next slide. Okay, so I do have a slide with further information. This just links to the meeting recordings and the report from the SAC working group in 2016. So Adrian asks, how will the new subject headings be formatted in the 650? They will be formatted. I think for Virginia, you updated them with the 650 as if they were Library of Congress subject headings.
Yes, I did.
What your plan will be?
Yes, I did. But I'm thinking, because I think that's going to be the most expeditious way to doing it. But I've also been thinking about maybe we do need the 2 with the local or something like that. But they can be changed later with like Mark Edit or something.
Right. If Library of Congress does edit them, we could change them then, or we could just continue to discuss it.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Are there any other questions? Okay, so Virginia wanted to clarify, Adrian wanted to clarify, Virginia, if you were going to decide to change it to the subfield 2 now, or wait and just make it subfield.
I think we'll wait.
So it sounds like we're going to wait to add the subfield 2 until Library of Congress makes their own change. For now, it will just be 650. Okay, so first on our action items is a proposal to allow the homosaurus controlled vocabulary. At the March Executive Committee meeting, some of the members voiced interest in adding new terms or correcting existing terms to improve access points. The committee stated that it is appropriate for CCS to work with library staff to move forward with allowing terms for additional thesauri without approval. Approval is only necessary when LCSH terms are replaced. So after listening to core interest group webinars and conducting research on the terms to support diversity, equity, and inclusion initiatives, I identified one thesaurus that CCS could benefit from called Homosaurus. Homosaurus is an international linked data vocabulary of lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, and queer plus terms. This vocabulary is intended to function as a supplement to other vocabularies like the Library of Congress subject headings. It is maintained and used by the Digital Transgender Archive and is regularly updated by an editorial board with new headings. It has already been accepted for use in OCLC records and has been assigned the source code HOMOIT to add to the subfield 2. Libraries and archives are particularly interested in using this because the LGBTQ+ topics do not properly represent all of the current terms being used. People who search for items in the catalog use the more popular or trending terms rather than the older terms that were created, say, 20 or more years ago. Gender and sexuality terms have both evolved significantly over the last 20 years. So adding inclusive subject headings creates a more supportive environment and educates the public on the proper terms to use. So adding additional terms also allows more items to be discoverable that were previously hidden. So I'm going to provide some examples now of how beneficial terms from Homosaurus could be. So one good example is the term aromantic. Aromantic topics have only begun to gain visibility recently, so there aren't many books published on the topic. However, I do expect that a number of books will be published in the future. Most people are familiar with the concept of asexuality due to the amount of publicity it has gotten in the news in the last 10 years. And LC has recently added asexual subject headings, but not aromantic ones. However, Homosaurus does have a subject heading for asexual people. So for a book like Loveless, which is on being an asexual and aromantic teen, this book is easily accessible via subject headings for asexuality and relationships. However, a book like Common Bonds that is only on the topic of aromantic relationships does not have the best subject heading options to choose from. But the Homosaurus term aromantic people is an option. And the editorial board is planning on adding asexual fiction and aromantic fiction in the future. So there are a number of genre headings that are available in Homosaurus that are not available with Library of Congress yet. Another great example is the Homosaurus term non-binary people. A major problem with Library of Congress subject headings is the term gender nonconformity or gender nonconforming people. This is not the preferred term that is used by non-binary people. It is a term that demonstrates an implicit bias that adheres to a gender stereotype of a binary gender system. Although non-binary is in the 450 field of authority records, it is not visible to the public in bibliographic records. Non-binary individuals would prefer to see the term non-binary in the catalog. So in addition to non-binary, homosaurus includes a number of other related terms that could be useful to add to the catalog, such as assigned female or assigned male, as well as equivalent genre terms for non-binary fiction. This slide highlights some additional terms from homosaurus that are not in Library of Congress subject headings yet, but are important to the LGBTQ+ community. So these include birth certificate amendments, corrective rape, demisexual people, gray sexual people, which are both on the asexual spectrum, as well as some foreign terms that could be useful in Northern Illinois, like hijra, which is a common term used in South Asia for transgender people. And some other examples of genre terms include bisexual horror fiction or transgender horror fiction. So homosaurus basically combines what would normally be two terms for genres and created one term out of them. So Library of Congress subject headings, for example, has bisexual fiction and horror fiction. So by combining them, you'd be able to co-locate all of the genres of bisexual horror fiction with one genre heading to be able to click on that link and find all of the bisexual horror fiction in the catalog. So in order to identify if CCS would benefit from homosaurus, I had Bob create a report on several headings that were not LCSH terms and their equivalent LCSH term. So two good examples are non-binary and polyamory. So since 2018, there were 65 searches that included the words non-binary with or without hyphen, but only 11 searches for gender non-conforming people. So likewise with polyamory, although all of these searches that we identified with the term polyamory in them were for known titles, and only 5 of the searches included the words non-monogamous. The term LCSH uses is non-monogamous relationships, but so far more searches are executed with the more common terms. We also were able to have some assistance to analyze all of the searches that were executed for 1 year and compare them to all of the homosaurus terms to compare the list of search terms to what would be available in homosaurus. We have not had the time to analyze the entire report yet, but the link to the document is in the slide that is labeled further resources. So will give us a better idea of any conflicting terms that people would search with that may potentially be problematic, like the word bears. During the scrap meeting, members were concerned over vocabulary that contradicts LCSH terms or common meanings, as well as the sexually explicit terms, which is why scrap approved the motion to review homosaurus and select the most appropriate terms. I did review the terms to identify some of the contradictory terms to provide examples. So I only found 6 terms that were contradictory. So these include words for animals like bears or cubs, mythical creatures like fairies, a tribe's name, the use of the word space for BDSM role, as well as a common name like Ali. However, CCS discussed the scrap recommendation and does have a different opinion. CCS would prefer to vote on a motion to allow all terms from Homosaurus in the CCS database because we are interested in adding the vocabulary to be more inclusive. The workload required to review, select, and maintain the list on a regular basis is not the best use of Scrap's time for the long run. And after reviewing the vocabulary, we do believe that any objectionable terms are more relevant to archives and special libraries than public libraries due to how specific they are. So as I mentioned, we have run the report comparing the search terms used to the Homosaurus terms. We will need some more time to analyze this list, but can use it to identify any additional contradictory terms without having Scrap review each one. So a catalog wiki page can include sufficient enough guidance on how to best use your cataloger's judgment when applying those terms, such as the list of the contradictory terms that should not be used, as well as guidance that could say, for example, explain that you should not use terms that are exactly the same as LCSH headings to avoid duplicate terms. Are there any questions?
I have a question.
Yes.
Rachel, for the headings that are basically genre headings, should we still use 650? Would we?
We can still use 650. The issue that that I asked Homosaurus about, I asked Homosaurus about the issue, and they said that they do not delineate any difference between genres and subject headings due to archival practices that they are following. And since the Spanish subject headings that are genre headings are already added at 650, it would be okay for us to use 650 for those genre headings. However, if you would like to decide to use 655, that would be fine too. It is up to CAMM to decide if you would like to use 655 for those headings. Adrian asks, wouldn't it be better if everyone used the same field? Yes.
Yes.
That is the plan. We can, CAMM can decide, or Scrap can discuss if they want to use 655 for genres and 650s for the non-genres, or if they want to just use 650 for everything. So it's something that Scrap could maybe discuss at the next meeting before we make the catalog wiki page. But CAMM is also welcome to, I guess, make a motion to decide. If you decide to accept the Homosaurus term in the catalog, you could also make a secondary motion to decide on what the field should be for genre headings. Adrian asks if she can make the motion to keep the genre in 655. I think that motion should wait until someone decides to make the motion to accept the controlled vocabulary in the CCS database.
So Rachel, is that the end of your presentation on it?
Yes.
Okay. Did anybody else have any other questions or discussion on it before we vote?
Let's see. So Brian asked, these are to be used alongside the LC headings
Yes.
and not to replace them. Yes, these are used as a supplement. You will not be replacing headings, just adding them as additional access points, if you'd like. It's up to you to decide if you need to add them or not.
No,
No, I think it would be best at this time to not update or upload the whole Homosaurus authority file and just to add them one at a time as we see that someone has added a heading.
So we're not importing the authority file, but we would be saying we're allowing any appropriate heading from the thesaurus to be added.
Yes.
yes.
Yeah.
And if we decide to do it, I have written up some procedures so you can be opening a help desk ticket and say, I use non-binary is already in there as a test, but something else, and say, please authorize it. And then I will authorize it off your, there'll be different other kinds of procedures, but mostly it will be opening a help desk ticket. And they will be authorized locally.
So if nobody else has any questions or discussion, would someone like to make a motion to allow headings from Homosaurus? Lynn Rubio has made the motion. Is there a second?
I'll second. Oh, no, I'll second.
Okay. Looks like Michelle London has seconded the motion. CCS has requested a roll call vote for this one, I believe. Is that still correct, Rachel?
Yes.
Okay, so we'll do a roll call for this one. Xiao Chen will call out the libraries, I guess starting with Algonquin. And when you're called, you can either say audibly or in the chat, yes, no, or abstain. And I guess, Xiao Chen, whenever you're ready.
Okay, Algonquin,
Algonquin votes yes.
Carrie,
It's
Carrie-
yes from Linda.
Yes.
Crystal Lake,
Yes from Kit.
Des Plaines,
Yes from Lynn.
Ira,
Yes.
Evanston,
Yes.
Fox River Valley,
Yes from Karen.
Fremont, do I have Fremont?
Yes, not.
Glencoe,
Yes.
Glenview,
Yes.
Grace Lake,
Yes from Grace Lake.
Highland Park, Huntley, Indian Trails, Lake Forest,
Yes.
Lake Villa,
Yes.
Lincolnwood, yes. McHenry,
Yes.
Morton Grove, Morton Grove, okay, I'll go to next one. Niles,
Yes.
Northbrook,
Yes.
Palatine,
Yes from Palatine.
Park Ridge,
Yes from Park Ridge.
Prospect Heights, Prospect Heights,
Not seeing anything.
Round Lake,
Yes.
Wilmette,
Yes.
Winnetka,
Yes.
Zion.
I don't think Zion is here either.
Okay, so on my list, I have 28 libraries. Everybody says yes. Then only Morton Grove, Prospect Heights, and the Zions, nobody's here.
Okay, let's pass. And maybe
Yes.
could Scrap take up the 650, 655 thing at their next meeting?
Yes, we can discuss that at the next meeting.
I think that'd be easier. Okay, Rachel, if you'd like to go on to the next thing.
Sure. Our next item on the agenda. Oh, Michelle asks, should we wait for the wiki page before we start using these new terms? Yes. Well, I think you can start to use them. I wouldn't. Do you think that would be okay, Jamie? If they use them before the wiki page?
I don't see
I
why
can't
not.
imagine you'd want to use a controversial term right now, so I would say yes. One thing I was thinking of was to just bulk add non-binary people to anything that had gender non-conforming people anyway. So I think yes, you can use them. Okay, so the next thing on the agenda is the proposal to allow the Spanish subject headings from Biblioteca Nacional de España. Scratch passed the motion to recommend allowing the BNE headings in the CCS database. The Autoridades de la BNE is free to use online. It includes subject headings, genres, and authority files for titles and personal corporate names. One thing that is great about this is that it allows easy access to examples of items with the terms so that you can easily cross-reference it and check to make sure that it is the right heading. One of the problems with using Queens is that it doesn't have the broader or narrower terms that BNE has. While Bilindex is not free, there is a separate website. So it is fine to use the separate website, but BNE is recommended for how user-friendly it is and how accessible it is. One question that you might have is if there's any regional differences between these controlled vocabularies, there has not been any regional differences that have been found yet between them. And Kathy posted a link for BNE that it's also indexed in lcsh-es.org. Are there any questions?
Rachel, will we be using these only or in addition to the Queensboro and Bilindex headings?
In addition to Queens and Bilindex. So just be one more option to use. Michelle asked, will these headings be authorized? Virginia, have you been authorizing headings For
I've been-
Spanish
Oh,
terms.
yeah, for longest time in the olden days, I did authorize the bill index ones. I can continually try to authorize the newer ones from the Bibliothèque Nationale Espagne, but I will try. How's that? It gets difficult. Sometimes Polaris provides difficulties in that area. How's that? Harder to find the terms than some other systems.
And just like the other Spanish headings, this is one where genre terms are definitely in 650, right?
Yes.
Okay, if there are no other questions, I guess would someone like to make the motion to allow the headings from B&E?
I motion that we allow the B&E subject headings.
Thank you, Kathy. Is there a second?
I second.
Not sure who that was.
Patty McMahon.
Patty from Mountain Lake.
Thank
Yep.
you.
Thank you.
Okay, I don't think we need a roll call for this one, but is there any objection to allowing the heading? I'm not hearing any objections, so motion carries. Rachel, if you'd like to go on to the 945.
Sure. Next on the list is the proposal to not require the 945 field. So as I mentioned earlier, Virginia has updated the markup query to function without the 945 by using the query that Bob uses for sending files to Project OHM for setting holdings. Likewise, Bob has not been using the 945 field for a while. So it was only necessary because it was used to eliminate records from record sets sent to the vendors. But at this point, it's not being used at all. So it is not necessary to include in records. So Scrap passed the motion to recommend eliminating the requirement of adding the 945 to the record. One question that did come up in the help desk ticket was how they would be alerted to records that are local records that should not have holdings set. Basically, Project OHM looks for the OCLC number in the record. If there is no OCLC number in the record, it cannot set holdings. So if you do have local records that you don't want the holdings set on, you can delete any OCLC numbers in the records, and it will not be able to set the holdings on it. And if it already has holdings set and doesn't see the OCLC number in the file in the future, it will remove the holding from that record.
Rachel, and even if it has an OCLC number, there are certain material types that are excluded, right? Like
Yes.
equipment.
Yes. So the query to form these record sets looks at the material types in the item record, the circ status like on order, and the material types in the bibliographic records. Adrian asks, will this interfere with records that are missing from the OCLC number when Palatine migrated from Sierra to Polaris? We're trying to fix them, but there are 6,000 plus items missing the OCLC number. That will affect how the holdings are set, but if you had already manually set the holdings, Project OHM would not be able to remove the holdings if it doesn't already see the OCLC number in the record. So it should not have any effect on your holdings that were migrated from Sierra to Polaris.
Any more questions? Would someone like to, I guess, make a motion to eliminate the requirement to add the 945 for OCLCD offset? I guess I'll make the motion. Is there a second?
This is Tammy from Grays Lake. I'll second.
Okay. Thank you, Tammy. Okay, is there any objection to not, or is there any objection to the motion? Okay, I'm not hearing any objection, so the 945 is not required. Okay, Rachel, moving on to changing the CAMM meeting dates.
Okay, great. So due to the fact that acquisitions, CAMM, and scrap meetings have been overlapping with the executive committee, we decided to move the meeting back 1 week for the next fiscal year in order to allow those who would like to attend both meetings to do so. So I have listed our next CAMM meetings on this slide. So the next meeting will be on August 18th. Are there any questions? Okay. So I think we are now moving on to the next
Becky has a
item.
question. Becky has a,
So is moving our meeting to the fourth Wednesday an option? I will have to look into that.
Is there a particular reason? I'm just
Well,
curious.
my biggest reason is that Wednesday is the third Wednesday is always a very, very busy Wednesday. I mean, I know that's the situation with all Wednesdays in the month. So I was just throwing it out there to see if the fourth Wednesday was possibly an option.
It is an option. I can look into that and see if that will be better for us.
Thank you.
Corinne asked if many CAMM members go to executive meetings. I don't think so, but there has been some interest from those that do go to the executive meetings. Like Deborah would like to come to the CAMM meetings more often, but has to go to the executive meeting.
I think the conflict is primarily with governing board. I know there are a number of people here who are alternates for governing board for the directors. So having them on the same day sometimes presents a bit of an issue.
Anything else? Okay, let's move on. So next is our section on reviewing procedures and demonstrations. So I've received several serials questions about the changes, about title changes, ceased publications, and closing records, as well as some on special issues. So these types of serials changes don't happen frequently. So it's good to review these tasks every once in a while. So today I'm just going to review the resources that are available on these topics, and you can take the time to read through the documents when you have time. So the links to important resources are on this slide. So in the learning portal, we do have a page on the procedures for title changes, ceased publications, and cancellations of serials. The page in the learning portal describes when to update the bibliographic records, serial holdings records, and check-in records under these different circumstances. However, there is a separate page in the catalog wiki. This page explains the procedures for closing a serial record, what fields need to be updated and added. A link is also available for concert manual. I've been using the one that's on this ITS Mark catalogers reference page. And so this is specifically the page for special issues. So one person did ask, when is a special issue cataloged separately from the main serial? So according to the concert manual, it's really up to the cataloger to decide on how important the special issue is. So in general, if a special issue has its own title and is not numbered with the main serial, it can be considered a monograph. If a special issue is regularly published, it can be separately cataloged or cataloged as part of the main serial. However, if it is numbering that is in alignment with the main work, it can be cataloged as part of the main serial, but if it has a separate designation, it can be cataloged separately. Are there any questions about serials? Okay. So next on the agenda, I did send an email to the CATS list with an update for the generating labels document in Polaris. So I just wanted to review it. It's a fairly simple workflow, so I'm not going to open Polaris. Basically, to print labels in bulk, you can do so from a record set. You simply need to highlight all of the items in an item record set and right click. Then you can press print and label. So if your label options are set up to generate the labels in Label Manager first before they are printed, it will do that for all of your labels in bulk so that you can review them and edit them. But if it's set up to just print right away, it will do that and print right away. So it's really a great option for printing bulk labels. We do have one more reminder that I added into my list. A librarian has noticed a number of records that are missing the 546 field. This field is a language note, is required for bilingual and non-English items according to the bibliographic input standards. So please try to add this note if it's missing from the records. Are there any other questions? Okay, so I'm going to move on now to the staff report section. So my first topic is on our deduplication efforts. After I corrected the format of OCLC numbers in numerous records, 7,000 duplicate book records were able to be identified by the OCLC number. So we have been working hard to deduplicate these records. There are now less than 3,000 duplicate print book records left to deduplicate that match according to the OCLC number. So I hope that we'll be able to finish these by the end of the calendar year, but we'll see. It depends on how busy we will be. There are about 7,400 records of other formats than the print books that have matched by the ISBN or UPC that need to be reviewed, although many of them are not duplicates. We will be working on them as time allows. So after we do finish working on the print books, we will be able to do another round of deduplication by matching with the ISBN. So we are making some headway in getting all of the deduplication done, but it will still take some time. So I hope everyone has had a chance to check out the Simply Reports e-learning course online. The course does include some new documentation on publishing reports to the client, so you can share reports with other users. The exercises in this unit are focused more on reading reports, but also do include a count report of the collection. A separate course on technical services reports will be available soon. I will be presenting an abridged version of the Simply Reports for Technical Services webinar that's just on the catalogers reports at Williams Spring Conference. So I am excited to be able to share this webinar with others in Illinois and Wisconsin. So next I wanted to present a preview of our next fiscal year. So we do have a lot of exciting issues we'll be discussing and events that will be happening. The governing board has approved a goal to assist the members with diversity audits. So to do so, I have applied for a Rails continuing education grant for a webinar series on collection development strategies that support diversity initiatives. This will be a webinar series of 4 webinars. The topics will include disabilities, diversity audits, LGBTQ+ collections, and other data analysis methods for collections. Some of the webinars will actually include topics of interest to catalogers, such as creating accessible records for people with disabilities and inclusive subject headings. We have just created a new list to discuss diversity audits. And if you're interested in joining this list, please email the help desk so that we can subscribe you. One of the interesting things we'll be working on next year is constructing a diversity audit dashboard using subject headings. So Bob has begun to work on a prototype for that and is working on one for geographic regions by continent. And we will work on separate dashboards for topics like ethnicities, LGBTQ+ terms, and we will also be trying to create a dashboard for the 386 field so that libraries who are interested in doing an audit of the author's background could add a term to the 386 field and utilize that. There aren't too many records that have it yet, but we may be able to bulk add 386 field using the spreadsheets that libraries create for their diversity audit studies. We are still waiting for information on the Polaris 7.0 update from Innovative. However, we still haven't been able to upgrade the production server to 6.7 yet. We are still waiting on a patch to fix a bug. Are there any questions?
So I have a question about the diversity audit. Are you looking at something that would audit our present collections or materials we're purchasing?
It can audit the whole entire collection. It will have drop-down menus so that you can change the first available date. If you wanted to look at 1 year, you could do that. If you wanted to just look at 1 month, you'd be able to do that as well.
Okay, and do you know what criteria, because I don't know if you attended, I think you did, the Laconia meeting on diversity audits?
I did attend the Laconia meeting, so our criteria is limited to what's available in the records. We will be talking with Scrap next year about identifying subject headings properly. So right now, I've worked with Bob to identify our list for disabilities tentatively, as well as the geographic headings by continent, which we were able to get a fairly easy list from the Library of Congress website. So we will be reviewing our list of headings over the next year. Basically, the process, it's not going to be perfect, but what we're trying to identify are words like that are commonly in the 150, 450, and 550 of records that can be used as wildcards. Bob would search the entire authority file to identify all of those records that have those subject headings in them. And then those would be used to identify the bibliographic records that have those subject headings. And then a spreadsheet would be fed into Google Data Studio to create the dashboard. So we will be discussing topics at the next scrap meetings in the fiscal year begins, such as like the heading that will be available and any additional words that we should maybe look for to identify topics within the authority records.
Thank you.
So one thing that we will be doing is also asking for beta testers of our dashboard once we get our prototypes up, and we'll be looking for feedback on how they can be improved. So we will be asking those who are a part of the diversity audit list to be our beta testers because they tend to be already working on diversity audits or doing the research for it. So anyone who's interested in being a beta tester, please let me know by emailing the help desk and we can add you to our new discussion list.
Okay, thank you, Rachel. I think you can take a breath now and we'll move to Deborah.
Awesome. That was a good segue, Rachel, talking about beta testers, because that is one of my main updates today. Give me just one moment while I share my PowerPoint. Okay, Rachel, can you give me a thumbs up if you can see my PowerPoint?
Yes, I can see it.
Lovely. Okay, so I wanted to give an update today on CCS's participation in the Vega Discover Partner Program. So I'm sure most of you have seen our updates in CCS news, but CCS has signed on as a development partner for Vega Discover. And what is Vega? Vega is a new platform platform in development from Innovative. And when it's complete, this platform will be comprised of multiple solutions. It will include a discovery interface or catalog interface, various patron engagement tools, an analytics piece, and then program and event software. So CCS has signed on to be a development partner specifically for Vega Discover, which is the catalog interface. As development partners, CCS is participating in advisory group discussions and user testing with Innovative. Our beta library volunteers will work with us to test out Vega. We'll share our feedback with Innovative and help them develop the product to fit our needs. And then ultimately, if our needs are met, we'll adopt Vega Discover as a replacement for PowerPack in the spring of 2022. So I've broken down the project into roughly 3 phases: project planning and kickoff, our Vega soft launch, and then general availability and go live. And as you can see here by the dates, this project will span multiple months and will carry us into early 2022. So phase 1 is the phase we are currently in right now, which is essentially planning, lots of planning and kickoff. So during this first phase, which will run through the end of June, early July, CCS is attending monthly development partner meetings with Innovative and other partners in the program. We're currently planning for our Vega setup. We're planning for 2 instances of Vega. Our first initial instance will sync against our training database. So it'll be a training version of Vega. That'll give us a chance to see what Vega looks like, to test, to play around in the interface before we have our production version set up, which will happen later in the summer. During this planning stage, CCS is building our user testing plan. And we're also recruiting our beta libraries. You may have seen the call for beta library volunteers go out in CCS News last week. We are looking for 4 to 8 beta libraries to help us out in this project. Our beta libraries will assist with user testing and gathering feedback from our patrons, and they will be adopting Vega in the library at their OPACs during the soft launch phase, which I'll talk about next. In April, Governing Board also discussed our general project plan and our rollout options. So we're currently planning, if Governing Board later votes to adopt Vega, we're planning for a staggered rollout of Vega in spring of 2022. So that may change as we learn more about the software during this project. Phase 2 will begin in July or August, and that's our soft launch phase. Now, with the soft launch phase, we will be set up with a Vega Discover instance that's syncing against our production database. So it will be a live Vega Discover interface. Staff and patrons can work in Vega Discover, and those updates will sync again to our production environment. During this time, CCS will provide various training opportunities such as webinars, asynchronous training, and we'll begin creating all of our Vega documentation and training materials. Now, the reason we're participating in this is so that we can test Vega and help Innovative troubleshoot bugs, issues, and chime in towards development. And we'll accomplish that by gathering feedback from staff and gathering feedback from patrons. So we'll be conducting user testing in the late summer months with our beta libraries. As I mentioned in the earlier slide, our beta libraries will begin using Vega in the library, the link to Vega from their website and from PowerPack, so that patrons can use the new interface and share their feedback with CCS. In October, Governing Board will discuss their criteria for accepting Vega. So what features, what functionality do we need to have in Vega in order to adopt it as our primary discovery tool to replace PowerPack? So we'll begin talking about that in October in anticipation of a January 2022 vote. Our third phase is going to be general availability and go live, and we'll enter into this phase in late fall, spring of 2022. So once we've conducted all of our user testing, again, we'll continue to gather feedback if we need to. We'll compile all of our data into a recommendation for Governing Board, and ultimately Governing Board will vote on whether we adopt Vega in January at their Governing Board meeting. Depending on how that vote goes, CCS will conduct additional training for libraries as needed to prep for a rollout, which would happen around March of 2022. I know that was a lot of information that I just shared with you. So we're really excited. We have already received a few libraries that are interested in being our beta partners. So we've asked for libraries to submit their application by June 1st, at which time we'll go through and we'll, if we get more than 8, we'll go through and we'll select the libraries that will be our partners. So if you are interested, go ahead and talk with your director. We're looking again for those nominations to be submitted by June 1. Does anyone have any questions? All right, I don't see any questions in the chat.
Deborah, might it be possible to email out some links to other libraries that are currently using Vega? Because
Yeah, I'd
that
be happy
helps
to.
me see. Yeah.
I'd be happy to. There are only, I think at this time, there might be 3 libraries that are actually live on Vega. They are Sierra libraries. So Innovative is working to develop the product for both Sierra libraries and Polaris libraries. There are no Polaris libraries live on Vega yet. We are one of a handful of Polaris libraries that are participating in the program. So I'll go ahead and I'll pop a couple links into the chat. There is also a upcoming webinar from one of the libraries that is live. We're gonna share that in the newsletter on Friday. It's next week. So if you're interested in attending that webinar, it's free. That might be a good chance to see what Vega looks like. So I will make sure to share that out. And Innovative will be hosting a webinar just for CCS libraries sometime in July so that they can specifically speak to our instance of Vega. So that'll be a nice chance for everyone to get to see the product. I think there's something in the chat here. Kurt is asking, what about all of our Power Pack configuration we've set up? I'm assuming they can't be migrated. Vega is a completely separate product from Power Pack, so it will have different settings and configuration. So that will be part of the process. If governing board votes to approve a contract and approve the move to Vega, we'll work with libraries to set up their Vega instance as needed. So one thing to note that this is a product that is being developed. So Vega is not done yet, and it will likely be some time before the product would be considered complete. Innovative is using iterative development, so they're continually releasing new features about every 2 weeks. So they're rolling out product updates very regularly. So the Vega that we see when we get our test instance set up is going to look different in 6 months because they're constantly releasing new features and adding new features to the software. So CCS has a plan to conduct ongoing training for libraries and like quick webinar updates as new features are being rolled out. That way we can keep libraries in the loop with the newest features. Any other questions? All right, if not, I do have one other update for the group. As of yesterday, I am currently stepping into my role as acting director of CCS while Rebecca is out on leave for a few months taking care of a little human. So if there is a question that you would normally direct to Rebecca, you may send that my way because she'll be out for a bit of time. And that is the last of my updates. So I'll turn it over to Virginia.
You're muted, Virginia.
I have, Rachel, can you, how do I get the screen? I'm sorry. Share my screen.
You can share your screen by pressing, there's a green arrow at the bottom.
Oh, yeah, thanks. Here it is. Here you go. can everybody see my, well,
Yes,
Okay.
we can see it.
okay, thanks. I'm just going to give you some tips and tricks and things that things that I think you might want to know. I mean, okay, let's see. The next group of archive records are going to next Wednesday, May 26th. I was going to send them this week, but Archive is moving their offices, and so they're closed right now. There'll be approximately about 12,000 of them going, big records going. I want to send them before any of the illegal aliens changes are done. And after that, after all the changes have been done, I'm going to contact Archive. And so in future matches, in future batches, they won't undo any kind of changes that I have. I know they worked with other libraries with illegal aliens changes, and because I was reading up on their website yesterday, and maybe they can do something for us too. There's some new subject headings worthy of note. I might have mentioned these in emails, but there's some new subject headings that have bibliographic records attached, including drag queens, drag kings, women hikers, outdoors women's, and racism and criminal justice administration. These all have been retrospectively, records have been done, worked on them. But there was one record that, there was one new subject heading I thought was really kind of a good one, but there's so much work done that has to be done. There are other things in my way of working on that, and that's rail passengers. You may use it, and please do. It's just there's so much other ones I would like to add. Like I know there's that Girl on a Train and other lots of books that really could use the subject heading. But I guess that has to wait for other things to be done. There's a couple of new genre headings from Library of Congress. It has a list that comes out about once a month from list 3, which be March. That's African futurist fiction. And if you think of that, that's a genre heading. Anything, think of Black Panther. I think that's probably a very good example of what kind of thing you might use for that one. And then psychological films. And we've had a couple questions lately. I've had about how to handle young adult fiction. For the genre heading of young adult fiction, you can use a 655 second indicator 7 with young adult fiction, and then you can do the subfield 2 local. I think Rachel put something on the wiki to cover that too. And there's one more subject heading reminder. We're talking about illegal aliens and aliens. The subject heading of extraterrestrial beings should be used for material about outer space and the beings that live there. I was thinking about Elf, the old TV show Elf, or My Favorite Martian. But anyway, you can show how old I am when I think of those. Do not use the term aliens. Do not use the term aliens because it will be changed over for non-citizens. And Rachel has done some cleanup with that subject heading, cleaned up some of those already for us. Ones that were subject headings that were not used properly. And one more thing that I did some other cleanup recently, do not use the subdivision of biography or any other personal subject headings except for those that are explicitly that have an explicit subject heading for the person in the National Authority file. And that excludes all the big guys like William Shakespeare, Jesus Christ, the Prophet Muhammad, and the Virgin Mary. And I've done some cleanup on that. And here's another reminder. Do not consider these as a series. You might see a heading like Schwab, Victoria, City of Ghosts, spoken word with someone like Burr, or I don't know, whatever. They're not considered authority. They're not considered series, but there are authority records in there in the National Authority file, because under RDA, they are considered as expressions. So treat them as an added entry, like with a 700, but not as a series. Couple other little miscellaneous notes. I'm also deduping, and I'm working more on, seem like I'm concentrating more in the videos. I've done a lot, but there's still a lot to do. I try to do some each day, but other things seem to always want to get in my way. I will be doing the bulk of the illegal aliens changes during the week of June 7th. The system, I hope, will be doing a lot of the changes globally or if I change the authority record, it changes automatically all the headings that are attached. There's some they're not, and so it's going to take me 3 or 4 days to complete the changes. I really hope it's going to take shorter, but who knows? And I'm going to give you a warning that tickets sent to me that time and the week before will take longer for me to reply because I'm spending all the time on the illegal aliens. And the week before that, I will be on vacation or on break. Not really vacation. And that's it. I can stop sharing my screen. Any questions?
Yeah, I have one. For the young adult one, so we're using 655.7, even though that will give us an error message when we're saving the record.
Yes, please do. If you're getting error message, sometimes if you're getting that error message like it's not linked or whatever it is that what you're getting?
Yeah, because it doesn't like that one. It likes the 0 instead for that, but yeah.
You can. Sometimes I do change it to 0 because it does the linking, but technically you should be doing the 7. I don't know why it will.
All right.
I don't know why, just the way the authority record is, or way system is, that it wants a 0. And what Kathy had a question in the chat about. It's just the series expression thing. It should be a 700 instead of 800. I've seen those sometimes as an 8. And I've changed them back to a 7 and they authorize quickly, properly. I think it's Baker and Taylor or Scott Forsman, or not Forsman, but Follett is adding those expression ones as in authority records when they're doing, it's mostly for like sound recordings and things like that. Please continue use it because it's an expression and technically it's okay. It's showing who was the author, or who, I think actually shows who is the speaker or the narrator in the audiobook. And so please just continue using it as a 700 but not as an 800. Does that help?
That helps a little. You may be getting more questions from me because I haven't seen them yet. I do a lot of our audiobooks. And that's why I'm kind of asking, because like I said, I've not seen them before, and I just want to make sure that as I'm doing new things, I'm not creating more work for you or problems. And I got the big question mark over my head sort of still. but like I said, I'll reach out when the questions come up.
Okay. Anything else?
Okay, thank you, Virginia. We're almost to the end. Did anybody have any announcements or anything else they'd like to share?
Announcement.
Okay.
Okay, so we have another reorganization in March. So now Access Services changed the name to Patron Services. And now we are under Deputy Director, Chris. Then we have a supervisor. So that's Ruchi Sharma. So anything about TS stuff, you can send to Ruchi Sharma. And I'm still doing cataloging and ordering. So that's all.
Okay, thank you. Anything else? Okay, well, that's the end, so the meeting is adjourned. Thank you, everybody.
So Jamie Wednesday, right? Jamie.
Xiao Chen and Sarah.
Okay.
Yeah.